Okay, Rod, I came down here to the shop and got out a bunch of samples here that we ran over the years with our flat sheet binder using our 304. And I don't think there's many examples here where there wasn't one man running the machine. As I go through some of this, if I can think of one, I'll point it out. First off, I grabbed this stack of magazines here. These were for Sherwin-Williams. These are all 100-pound throughout. Every page is on 100-pound glossy enamel. And these have a page count of 56 pages. And the cover is self-contained. So it's 56 pages of a 100-pound gloss book. Obviously, these have been sitting around in a box for a while. And they've gotten pressed flat. I mean, I think we can assume that these have been pressed flat. These were punched in line using the Fenimore punch, the 3-hole punch across the top. These runs here were about 20,000. We produced about 20,000 magazines for them, and that would have been all done by one guy. So you could have did that on my machine. I had a 15-bin machine, so 15 at 4 pagers put you at 60-page magazine. So this was a single pass. So that was a regular run for us. And inside, it was color palettes in that. So it was a very lot of light pastel colors in that. So we had to match these colors as we ran. This is another big project. I think this is the one you have a video of. And let me get the page count on this. Page count on this is 74. 76 pages. So this was a double pass. This is why in your video you see us going through the first pass, and this is where we would feed it back through. So, being with all of the different pages, we did a 5-hole punch on this, which is pretty common. We did a lot of 5-hole punching. 5-hole punching, sometimes your outer holes are larger than your 3 inners, and also some 5-hole punches, they're all the same straight across. I don't know anybody that's watching this video who does 5-hole punching, but if you do, then you know that there's 2 different 5-hole punch dies, depends on the customer. So these here, we ran in quantities of 20 to 30,000. And that would have been done by one man. He would have done the first pass by himself. And on the second pass, there probably was 2 people, because somebody would have loaded the top load feeder from the first pass, which would have fed with 1 staple in the middle. And it would feed those on top of the next set, and then it would bind them all at once. So those are 2 very high quality magazines we did. Okay, now these here may surprise you. We were also publishers. I had a publishing company, and these were 100,000. We printed 100,000 of these and bound these at a time. And one man did it, and they had the inkjet on the back for mail, because all of these mailed out. So the postage bill was quite hefty. We did this every other month, so every 8 weeks on a 29-inch press, we ran 100,000 of these magazines, sheet fed. And this particular one actually has a blow-in card that you can see that we did. And page count on this, this issue here is, this one is 32 pages. This one here is 32 pages. This one here also has a blow-in card. And what we would do is we place the card and just barely catch the staple, like right there. We rolled the staple onto the back and just barely caught it. So one man produced 20,000 of these a day by himself and did the inkjet addressing on Star Styles magazine, which I both printed and published, and was the editor-in-chief of writing at it. These magazines here, the Today magazine was a magazine that went into smaller cities, and we ran 20,000 of these. And it's about the same page count. These are composed of like 70 pound on the outside, and like a 100-pound text for a cover. Another, this is a 9 by 12. catalog that was produced for retail products that were sold. Lots of color. We also did all of our perfect binding. We did not do perfect binding. Of course, we sent it out, but we gathered all of our perfect binding. Because I was a writer and I had publishing companies that published my writings, I had connections into the publishing world, so I was able to get books in the stores and that. So here's some samples of books that we obviously folded into larger SIGs and gathered on the flat sheet collator. Of course, this did not go through the 304 binder. We just flat sheet collated it. Here's a nice Christmas book that we did. It's on some nice vellum stocks. Nice big heavy devotional book. Here's a nice coffee table book by a photographer with some very high-end photography. And this was all gathered on that machine as well. These are other magazines that my company published. All of these are probably in the 48 page range. And these would have ran in the 15 to 20,000 range a piece. And so you gotta add all this stuff up. I mean, we were obviously when we were doing the 100,000, that was pretty much on the machine for a week. But for the most part, that machine kept pretty busy gathering up all these different full color magazines. This here was for the local college. I was their main printer. They ran these 40 and 50,000 at a time. And there were multiple catalogs that we did on a regular basis. This one here is about 28 pages, 100-pound stock on the inside, 80-pound cover on the outside, all high-quality printing. These are all the same. You can see the fold on those. We also published yearbooks. These are case-bound, hard. And we would have gathered all of this over there and prepared it for whoever was case binding them. This one here is partial black and white, partial color. And this was for a university. Here's one we gathered over there, and it's got tabs in it. So you can pick up all kinds of tab pieces, heavy cover stock. And of course, it's punched in line. And how we would do that is we would send it, so we didn't have to deal with handling all these flat sheets that were separated. We went ahead and did it and folded them and punched it in line and then merely trimmed the spine off. Boom, book was done. That way we didn't have to keep everything separate. I had a unique way of doing that. I explained that in the email to you how we did that. And here's the big one that I told you about in the email. Now, think about this project here. A lot of these projects are projects that, as a printer, you probably turn away. If you say, hey, they ordered, look how many pages this is right here. It goes into a 3-ring binder. But this was all gathered on the flat sheet binder, and we made 3 magazines in order to come up with this. Or 4. Might have been 4 magazines. I got to work the page count. But I'm not sure. Yeah, the pages are numbered. This is 160 pages. And we bound, and I could do 15 times 4. I could do a 60-page book. 60 times 4 is 240. 60 times 3 is 180. So we did this in 3 passes. We tiled it in pre-press very carefully so that when it was all square, everything, of course, tiled out so it all matched up, because there's mastheads that have to match at the top the whole way across. So we had to be careful when we 3-knifed it. We also had to be careful when we punched it, because we had to account for the wraparound. So when we cut it on the cutter, all of these here stayed the same as we cut. But that was all easily done. It just took some more planning. So this huge book here, could you imagine putting together, 20,000 180-page books and all full color printing and punching it, and then the customer put it in the binders. We delivered it shrink wrapped. Wheeling Lake Erie, the railroad was a big customer of mine. Here's a tall thin book we did. It's spiral bound. That was all gathered on flat sheet binding. Here's a bunch of other tabbed books. One's for Cleveland State University. This one here, that was a regular job. This here is a big building industry book for the state of Ohio with all kinds of tabs in it. And this is a physician's directory for the state of Ohio with tabbing and what have you. This was a National Safety Apparel company. We did many magazines for them. These would have ran 10 and 20,000 at a time. And you can see the page count on these is fairly high. These are like 80, 84 pages a piece. And obviously gathered, stitched. And here's something we did for Hobby Lobby, the retail store. And in order to show you this, I'm going to have to cut it open. I think I buried my knife over here. I'll put it in my back pocket. Oh, here it is. Okay, so these had to go in a plastic bag. So I'm going to cut the top off. And this here we gathered on there. It had this intro page that went on the front. And then these little tiny things here, they got the little holes here in the top that punched out on the die cutter. And then there's a slit in there and it's a little hat. So we had to pick up these here. Little ribbons. We had to figure out how to collate ribbons. And you can see the rubber band on them. I had a special machine I made using my laminator and a rack that pulled the ribbons off and cut them in 10-inch segments. Each envelope had to have 10 envelopes in it, so the machine picked up the envelopes and put them on the track. And then you had the card, which is a baby's head that you fill out, folds in half like this. And then ultimately, you put the hat on the baby like this and tied the ribbon through the top of the hat. But we used the flat sheet binder to collate all of these sets, including the hats and the envelopes, and put the top sheet on it, and we threw the ribbons in by hand on the end. It was coming off, and then it had to slide inside the cellophane bag. And they ordered 20,000 of these at a time. I'm sure this job took more than one person to do. We probably had 2 people on the machine for that. Now this is the same thing, but it's pink, so it's for girls. I won't bore you with that. And then here's one here. This style went into a box, clear plastic box. Once again, you had your cover. And then you had this one had a back sheet. You have 10 envelopes that went in here. And there's a card in the middle. Gosh, that one was easy. That's just a square card, it looks like. So what we did was envelope card. We rotated them because the weight of the cards pushed the envelopes down, which got kind of fluffy. So that one there was actually a pretty easy one to do, obviously, from me looking at it. Some of the stuff I haven't seen in many, many years. But some of these are tricky. What we had to do to get them to feed. This one takes a really big envelope. And it's a card, once again, that's all die cut out. It's got all kinds of slits in it. It's all punched so that you punch it out, and that's all that is. That's a square card, and you punch out the shape. And this is for hobby people, so that's what it was designed for, people that wanted to do hobby type stuff. So that one there would have been not too hard to do. The lamb, this one here was tricky. The lamb here, you had your cover, your envelopes, but then you had your lamb, which is all die cut, but kind of kiss cut at the same time so that it didn't fall out. And then once you pop the lamb out, the lamb holds a card. It's pink because it's a girl. And when you fold the card in half, which is scored, maybe that's why I'm not a crafter. The lamb holds the card, and then it goes in the envelope. So, believe it or not, this is some of the stuff that we had our machine do. It was not advertised and designed to do it. However, because it's an open track system, there really is so many things that you're able to do to allow the machine to collate such crazy things. You take a tower collator, everything's enclosed in there. I mean, you're only going to do what the spec says, because you can't get inside the machine, you can't add anything. Here, I mean, you can add static pinners, you can add little wheels up on the track that help manipulate the pieces, which we had these little wheels that helped change the direction of pieces once they landed on the track. It was kind of unique how we did it. An engineer friend of mine and I designed it. Here's a little small book for Wheeling Lake area. It was like a handbook, how to run the air brakes on the train. Anyhow, that's just some of the stuff that we did on the machine. It's a big, huge cake laminator book. These are almost 1/8 of an inch thick with plastic studs in it. This wasn't a big job. Probably did like 1,000 of these books, all edge sealed so that they could be used in a cake shop and not get damaged around moist things. So, anyhow, for anybody looking to do flat sheet collating on a Col-Tec Binder, there are so many things you can do, from point of purchase, collating 6-foot pieces, even larger. They've done machines, I believe, up to 8 foot. You can go in the 8 foot wide, or you can go in with 8 foot trailing. Thickness, you can do a lot of thick things. At the thickest, we pick up 1-inch thick books, but I don't believe that's the limit. But that's not uncommon when we're collating items. Intelligent collators that pick up a different combination of sets on every single pass. That's you put a Excel document in there that it reads, kind of like you would direct mail, but this is telling it how to change up the sets each time for selective collating. All types of finishing on the end. You go right down into a shrink wrapper and shrink wrap your sets right off of it. You can bind books off of it. I mean, you can put slitting and perfing on the end. I mean, just all kinds of things we've done. Different conveyors, different stackers, different deliveries. I even turned one into a 19-station inserter one time because I put a bell and howl at the end. When a customer showed up and wanted to put 19 inserts into an envelope, he said, there's nobody around that can do it in one pass. And I remembered that I had a flat sheet collator, and I thought, well, gosh, that's got 15 pockets. I wonder if I could collate that and then go into an envelope. And I went and saw a friend who had a bell and howl, and he said, here, get this model here. And for $15,000, they bought a nice rebuilt, older model bell and howl. It had a hand feed rail on the end of it. I extended it by 1 station, making it just a little bit longer. And then it sat right up into my flat sheet collator, where it came right out, landed on the track, and went right on down, went into an envelope. That was $20,000 to $40,000 a month that we did. But think about the printing on that. You had 15 times 40,000 of each card, plus you had 40,000 envelopes, and they all had to come together. We had to apply a stamp onto them. Then we had to cancel the stamp out and inkjet the name on it and tray for bulk mail. And that was a monthly project that brought in around $50,000 a month for that. So for my $15,000 investment, it was a pretty good deal because I already had my flat sheet collator. And like my Hobby Lobby job, where I ended up collating all those strange hats, shapes and heads and envelopes, well, there's very few people that could compete. And for a guy with a 29-inch press, you would say, how in the world are you competing on catalogs that big? Well, the truth is, we bought the paper to a size where once the pressman was done, all we had to do was split it down half, one single cut. Pressman made sure he had it jawed good, made one single cut, then we loaded our bins and we let our flat sheet collator do the rest. And one operator then could put together 100,000 magazines all by himself in 4 to 5 days. And that included punching it and inkjet addressing it. It was a great system, and it was the one thing that anybody, we did a lot of tours here for graphic art schools, and local schools came through, advertising agencies, and that was one thing everybody always wanted to see. They always wanted to go watch our Col-Tec flat sheet collator and binding, because it's so much stuff to watch as it's collating going back and forth on the track. Very good. Thank you.